accounts from Jews that Jesus, got his teachings on or arts or magical arts from Egypt itself. So there are claims of that going back to the Jews.
The Talmud makes an allegation against Jesus. But when you look at the Talmud is not the Torah. It comes from later on. And I believe this is from Tract Sanhedrin. And yeah, I got it up on the screen before me. 107b reads, "The teacher said, Yeshu practiced sorcery and corrupted and misled Israel." And then Sanhedrin 104b says, "Did not Ben Stada bring forth sorcery from Egypt by means of scratches on his flesh?" So they're talking about Jesus, by the way. And they're basically saying that Jesus learned magic from Egypt and even cut magical formulas into his skin. That is what that's saying. You get a similar thing in the Gospels themselves, where the opponents of Jesus say he's demon-possessed, and they say that he drives out devils because he himself is basically possessed by a devil, and that's where Jesus says, "How can a house divided against itself stand?" The interesting thing about that is it's a polemic against what his opponents perceive to be some sort of power that he has. But basically, in a manner of speaking, instead of saying it's from up here, they're saying it's from down there, And in the case of Egypt, you might say that they're saying it's from right here. So it's a way to discount miracle accounts by Jesus, which is interesting because why would they need to explain that if there's nothing to explain? Why do you need to explain that unless there's something there? But the Talmud is interesting because it wasn't finished until later, so it's post-New Testament. However, there's a question about the dates of the source material, meaning how early does it go back? But even if the charge goes back all the way to the days of Jesus himself, let's just say hypothetically, obviously doesn't make it true, but it is an accusation that some of Jesus' opponents did make. It certainly is. It's right there in the Talmud, but it's just polemics against Jesus, basically, And one of them is, yeah, he could do miracles because he learned sorcery and magic from the Egyptians. So it's there, but it's very late. And obviously, it's just an accusation from an opponent, most likely from opponents who didn't even know him at the time. We don't see them saying that during his lifetime, although they said something similar, meaning you get it from the devil. But even in his lifetime, they weren't saying that. It seems like it's a later development, perhaps for people who then read the New Testament and they saw all these Christians say Jesus went to Egypt at some point. So maybe we'll say he learned magic there. The accusation seems to be past his life when it was created, and it may come from a reading of the New Testament itself, which would make it derivative. It's an insult based upon the source documentation we possessed as Christians at that time versus something that was organic in the context, because in the context of the Gospels, it's you're demon possessed. You see what I'm saying? Not you learn magic from pagans.